So, I want to do a video about how trolling is used to elicit a conditioned response of anxiety, fear, panic, anger, etc. in the targeted individual. Okay? Now, there's going to be links in the description to explain this. Now, first thing we need to understand is what is the mentality of a troll? A troll is somebody that has the dark triad uh, traits, particularly Machiavellianism, and has, a high degree of narcissism, 9 times out of 10. And in the case of the people that many of us are dealing with, they're stone cold psychopaths. If you see the way they treat folks like Adrasdia or Brandon, okay, these are psychopaths. These are people that have, uh, well, they gain so much pleasure out of the suffering of others. They're sadistic psychopaths, honestly. So that's number one. These are the people you're dealing with, are sadistic psychopaths that get off on trying to get people to harm themselves or to behave in ways that are unbecoming publicly and then shame them and cause them suffering. These are very sadistic people. So their main tool is what's called gaslighting. Now, gaslighting is a means of stating untruths and reaffirming those untruths, sometimes with the help of what are called flying monkeys or narcissistic agents. And that's what's going on, is you have a group of people that have their own manufactured reality, and they strengthen that manufactured reality amongst themselves, and they want you to question your own sense of reality. What do you think is really real? This is what they use against you, okay? And this is why it's so important to own your reality, to own who you are, and to own what you know is true, to own what you know to be objective reality, okay? So that's very important. Now, furthermore, what you have to understand is, okay, well, I'll cut to the chase here, okay. Some people might wonder, why am I so unbreakable? I'm not breakable. They have not broke me, right? They haven't broke me. Another gentleman they haven't broken is a gentleman named Donovan Schultes, okay? We don't break. Now, with me, I don't know what his situation is. With me, I've been dealing with gaslighting my whole life. Gaslighting in my family, now this is the thing, gaslighting in the mental health system. Now, I've worked in mental health, I've also received services from mental health. One of the tools they use in mental health, despite how much they deny it, to get you to become treatment compliant, is to gaslight you, to convince you that you're getting better when you're not, to convince you that things are working when they're not. And that's the thing, is that's one of the things my one psychiatrist respected about me, is a lot of times therapists and psychiatrists and case managers will all get together and form a little group of people, and they'll be like, your medication is working, you feel better, right? You feel better. Your medication is working, you feel better. And they'll repeat this to you until you believe it, right? But you're not feeling better, you might be doing worse. And I was the only person that he had ever met in his years of working, and he was the head doctor at one of the local state hospitals for a while before he decided to put his full time into the outpatient practice that he and a colleague had started, which is where he met me, of course. So he was amazed that I actually would say, no, this shit ain't working. It's not making me feel better. I'm doing worse. I'm objectively worse. I'm having more issues, not less. And I was able to stand firm with what was really going on. I could own my reality. I could lock into what was objectively true. Now, the thing is, I have a lot of Machiavellian traits, okay? But unlike a narcissist, or unlike a psychopath, I have when I feel emotion for somebody, I feel very intense emotion, okay? When I love, okay? And that's an important thing to understand. That separates me from other people that are truly uncaring and calculating. I can be, but it's difficult if I feel for somebody. And that was the reason that people used someone against me, is because it made me feel. Okay, just like when they used my former employer against me, it made me feel anger. Now with the other person, it made me feel sad, deep sadness. Okay, with my employer, it made me feel anger. If they can make you think with your emotions and not your brain, that's when they got you. Okay? And this is, there are places, like with me, I'm a very stubborn person. I am very Machiavellian also. And I'm somebody that does not give up easily. Okay? I believe in perseverance. However, there are times when you simply just need to cut your losses and say, this isn't going anywhere good. Okay? So once you can stop with the emotional thinking, if you can step back and stop with the emotional thinking and bring back the objective thinking, okay? And one of the things I found helpful with this are the exercises in DBT. I'm going to leave links to DBT exercises, but I also am going to leave links to a lot of other things, okay? Another thing I found extremely helpful is deep meditation, which is also part of DBT is meditation, but deep meditation, deep breathing exercises, zazen, just sitting, okay? So I found this to be very helpful, but the problem with the zazen, or just sitting, is some people, it fills their heads with thoughts. And you have to learn to let your thoughts come and go, not pay attention to the thoughts. And this will help calm the mind and calm the body, okay? And this is in DBT, but I didn't learn it from DBT. I learned it actually in karate class. And I expanded on it and things of that from my own research. We call it mukyum in Korean. So the thing is, how do you fight back against this? Well, I've explained it. You don't let yourself get emotional. You don't let yourself get conditioned. See, that's the thing, is these emails, they hammer you with emails. They hammer you with harassment. They have to elicit this upset in you, okay? This craziness. And number one, the easiest way is to remove yourself from the situation. See, with me, I've recognized I have nothing to lose. The other way, now I'm going to leave a link to my videos on the 8 laws of health, the Adventist 8 laws of health. Now, I'm not a big religious person, but I am somebody that has embraced the 8 laws of health for my own health, because they help you basically resist childhood, like there's certain stress factors in childhood, like abuse, emotional and physical abuse, and all sorts of stuff like that. And these things shorten your lifespan. They make you less likely to reach 100. They make you less likely to become a centenarian. However, by embracing the 8 laws of health, it makes you resistant to these childhood traumas, if you will, that cause epigenetic changes, which lessen your ability to live to 100. Well, by embracing the 8 laws of health, it reverses this. It helps you to resist this. And the last 8 law of health, trust in God. Okay? Now, like I said, I'm not a big religious person, although I have come back to a belief, a pantheistic belief in God. But what is a belief in trusting in God? Trusting in God is not necessarily trusting in God. Okay? Trusting in God is simply understanding. I like to use the philosophy in martial arts, or Aikido particularly is where it gets stressed enough, or a lot. But we have it in Tung Sudo too. You have a sphere of influence. There are 360 degrees of influence that you have control over. And it's how far you can reach. Okay? If you can't reach outside that sphere of influence, you can't properly defend yourself. You can't properly influence anything because it is not within your sphere of influence. So trusting in God is not necessarily trusting in God. You don't even need a belief in God to do it. You can be a stone cold atheist. What it is it's recognizing that things that are outside your sphere of influence are outside your sphere of influence, and you have no control over them, and you have to let go, and you have to step back. And just because something's outside your sphere of influence now doesn't mean it will be outside your sphere of influence later, but it's important not to think that way, because that can lead to you trying to push something that's not necessary. If something's going to come into your sphere of influence, let it come into your sphere of influence. Don't seek it. Okay? Don't aggressively seek it, because that's going to stress you out. Instead, embrace the fact that you have certain limitations. One of the hardest things it was for me to grasp was that I have a problem with working. Okay? I have a problem because of my emotional issues, because of my mental health issues, because of my PTSD and my obsessive compulsive disorder. I have an issue with working. It never turns out well for me to work a full-time job, even though I've done it very successfully for very long periods of time. It's not something that ever turns out good for me in the long run. One of the hardest things, because I'm somebody that puts productivity, I am somebody that had to learn that there are more important things than productivity, like one's own health. Okay? I'm somebody that will work an 18-hour day. Like when I started my first security job. See, as a kid, I did a lot of construction work. I taught karate. I did a lot of real physical labor work. When I became an adult, when I became like 19, 18 or 19, 19, I got my first security job. Okay, and they work you to death, and I would do 18-hour shifts because nobody would relieve me and all that. You can't just go home if nobody shows up to relieve you. You got to stick around. And I would work myself to death. I'd easily work 6-7 days a week. I would always volunteer to work holidays because, as far as I was concerned, it's more money in my pocket. Okay, I was a very money-driven person, a very career-oriented person. When I went through that, when I stopped being a security guard and I went into other things, back into construction, back into factory work, I did the same thing. Okay, and then when I finally went into mental health, that was very bad for me because it's not something you can pour yourself into. Okay, mental health plays tricks on your mind, especially when you do support work like I did. I was a support person. So my job was to help people file for welfare, help people get their Social Security, fill out the paperwork, take them into the community, integrate them into the community. And I worked with a lot of very unwell people with really bad schizophrenia. I worked with a lot of people with really bad substance use issues. I worked with a lot of people that were mentally challenged that nobody else would work with because they were scary people. I worked with a lot of people that just got out of prison and that nobody else would work with because they were scary people, but they needed services. So I worked with a lot of people that needed a lot of help. Okay? So when people need a lot of help and you're a caring person, that's something that's hard to separate yourself from. Mental health was certainly not the best fit for me as a career choice. Because it's something that you can't, if you're somebody like me, you can't leave it at work. And on top of that, some days I was working 16, 17 hours a day because I was salary and they trick you and you got to do paperwork and you got to do this and you got to do that. And I never worked in mental health before, okay? So accepting my limitations was very humbling, okay? It was very humbling. And I think that accepting one's limitations, accepting that we're not capable of doing everything and anything, and I always thought I was a very humble person. I really did. I always thought I was a very humble person. I'm not somebody that's aggressive toward people. I'm not a controlling person by any stretch of the imagination, unless it's things like work or something that I think I can control. Like I used to be very meticulous about keeping my place clean. keeping everything perfect, keeping my appearance perfect, keeping everything about everything perfect all the time. Everything had to be exactly the way I wanted it, okay? Accepting, now I didn't control other people, but I would control other things because I was always under the influence of, I can control my life, I can control my sphere of influence. And that's true. But everyone has limitations. And it can be very liberating to accept the fact that we have limitations. And this is the acceptance of trusting in God, whether you believe in God or not. It's the understanding that, there's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much a person can do, and there's only so much a person can influence. And at the end of the day, we all have to recognize that we have limitations. And to me, that was the most liberating thing I ever accepted. Now, unfortunately, when you think emotionally, like the situation I've been in now for years, due to the trolling and things like that, I was not equipped for this because I didn't understand this. I had to learn about narcissistic abuse. I had to learn about trolling. I had to learn about online harassment. I had to learn about workplace harassment like I put up with at work. I had to learn about all these things that I never even considered myself a victim of because I didn't even really consider that it existed. As weird as that sounds, it is still perplexing to me that people actually do this. It's astonishing to me that people make money like this. But it took me time to learn this stuff. This was something I had to learn. Now I'm a quick study, but it takes a while to fully grasp the situation, especially when you're thinking emotionally. Especially when you think there's someone that needs your help. Okay, especially for somebody like me. I'm a helper. I'm somebody that wants to help other people and lift them up and keep them from making mistakes and keep them from having problems. And that's what really got me hook, line, and sinker with this is I could not put it down because I didn't want someone to deal with problems. I thought people were causing them problems and things like that. And that's what got me. It wasn't myself. It was me caring about somebody else. And like I said, eventually I had to trust in God and recognize, I have certain limitations. There's nothing I can do about certain things. And because of this, I have to step back, recognize my limitations, and trust in God, to trust that things will work out the way that they're going to work out. And if something comes into my sphere of influence, then I can defend myself against it. Then I can change the course. But if it's not within my sphere of influence, I can't influence it. I want people to check the links in the description. I have a lot of links, particularly to Dr. Ramani. And I'm going to leave links to Dr. Sam Vaknin. Dr. Sam Vaknin is an Israeli psychologist. I believe he's also a physicist. He is a very brilliant gentleman. Okay, a very extremely brilliant gentleman that I think has given me the most insight into how narcissists think and feel. He himself was a narcissist or is a narcissist, which gives him a unique insight, an ability to let you know what a narcissist really feels, and that a narcissist truly is nothing. They have a complete emptiness, a void, and he teaches you how to practice nothingness and things of this nature. And it's difficult. Like if you're a feeling person, a thinking, feeling person, it can be extremely hard to step back when you think somebody else's life is in danger, or when you think somebody else is making really bad mistakes. And that's what got me. But the need to recognize one's own limitations and recognize that one's sphere of influence is only so far is indispensable in dealing with this type of abuse and this type of harassment. And this is just what targeted individuals deal with online, in real life, etc. This is real stuff. And this also goes under the classification of group harassment and group narcissism. These are real things. I never, like, when I first started noticing this stuff, it was probably about 3 years after I was being harassed. And the reason why it took so long is I'm not a paranoid person. I don't believe in Freemason conspiracies. I don't believe in space people. I don't believe that people are coming through the walls at me. I don't believe in, all this hokey pokey crap. And it looks like I probably should have. Okay? Not saying that I should have succumbed to conspiracy theories and all this stuff. But what I should have done for a very long time is recognized, these people. I had other targeted individuals coming to me on social media telling me I was a targeted individual. I didn't know what that was. And when I looked it up, I was like, wow, this is batshit insane. Okay? So I was like, that's not me. I mean, whatever. And then what really got me to recognize it was the actual in-person harassment and things of that nature. And then that led me to understand, wow, they're trolling the hell out of me. That there's a lot of online aspect to it, not just real life aspect. But the real life aspect is what I noticed, because it was more, to me, people harassing me online, until it really got like this, people harassing me online, I just thought were douchebags that were trying to have a good time by making somebody else feel bad. I didn't realize there was an intention, a plan, and an ability for them to make profit off it like they are. Now that I know all these things, it gives me a peace of mind. It lets me understand what their motivations are. Because I'm one of those people, I studied criminal justice. And one of the hardest things for people to recognize, and I don't think people do recognize this to this day, when I was studying criminal justice, I've studied crime. Criminology has always fascinated me. I think one of the downfalls is because we have this legalistic way of thinking, and we think that, well, somebody has to have a motivation to do something, and if they don't have a motivation to do it, why would they do it? And that's when you have to realize, like I have from studying crime, I've studied crime. Criminology has certainly interested me for a very long time. And some people don't need a motivator to do anything, and anybody can do anything to anyone. You might not think a little old lady can be a serial killer, but trust me, a little old lady can be a serial killer. It's happened. You can look it up. You might not think that a woman can be a serial killer. It's happened. Look it up. You might not think that a woman can be a predatory pedophile. It's happened. Look it up. It happens all the time. And this is the thing that I think we allow ourselves to get into these comfort zones so that we don't lose our minds. And while statistics matter, and while common sense matters, sometimes common sense is somebody's only motivating factor for doing something to someone else is that they just feel like it. They just want to do it. It's entertaining to them. Or they just do it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter at all to them. They have poor impulse control or something like that. And this is where like my study of criminology actually paid off. But like I said, once I realized these motivating forces, I started realizing these aren't just everyday people having fun. These are criminally minded people exploiting other people's weaknesses, other people's emotions, other people's what have you, to make profit. Okay? And that's what I've noticed. That's what I've continually noticed with this. And that's all for this video. Do follow the links in the description. The links in the description will help you gain an understanding of what's going on. And they will help you understand things you can do to protect yourself. Definitely check in with Dr. Ramani. And there's a lot that you can do to protect yourself and strengthen yourself against the gaslighting attacks and the narcissistic abuse, which is essentially what this is. It's narcissistic abuse for profit. That's all for this video. Everybody take care.